Good morning. I don't know about you, but that white bit of screen, it's such a long pause waiting for my moment to speak. And welcome, those who don't know, this is Manage Your Critic Monday. I'm Cheryl Andrews, I'm the listening detective, and we're talking today about why people don't come to me for sympathy, they come to me for solutions. And this has come about because of a question I was asked after I did a speaking gig on Wednesday last week, where someone said to me, do you find it hard not to coach? And so I'd like to just talk a little bit more about this. One of the things I love coaching, I love doing it, but I also have learned over the last 15 years of being a qualified coach is that not everybody wants to be coached. It's not the right kind of listening to help people to change. And sometimes actually what we need is some sympathy, some empathy, that actually what we're going through is really tough. However, for me as a person, I find it very difficult personally to listen to someone who is stuck because I often can see and hear a way of them getting unstuck. But I know that over a lifetime that people don't get unstuck until they're ready to. So I want to talk to you today a little bit about, I'm just going to make sure you can see the comments. I want to talk a little bit about what coaching is and what coaching isn't. And again, even more so help you understand what clean coaching is, which is the form of coaching that we do at Step by Step Listening. So when we're going through change, the first thing that we have to, there's three components to it. First of all, we have to know what we want to have happen. And sometimes we don't know what we want. We just know that what we've got isn't it. And my experience is that usually what's actually happened is rather than you wanting change, change has happened. And so you feel out of sorts, you feel a bit discombobulated, I can't even say that word, you can be overwhelmed, you can be frustrated, but you can't quite put your finger on it. And so people come to me for clarity because either they have to work out what they want, or they have to work out what it is that's actually happened, what's changed, so why have they gone from being okay to not okay. And often it can be a series of really small changes. So today, for example, you might have gathered, if you haven't noticed already, I'm not in my normal filming studio space. I'm in my camper van, that my faithful Bongo. And this is a change, but it's a change I'm quite happy with because I love this space. It brings me a great energy and it's got a real comfort zone. But before doing the filming today, I had to think differently. I had to have a different mindset, a different attitude, because I was going to be in a different space. So sometimes when I work with people, when they're okay and then they're not okay, often what's happened is something's changed, and often it's to do with their support network. So I've had people come to me who their marriage has come to an end. So even though the marriage wasn't working, it was somebody that they could talk to, even if all they ever did was vent at them and moan at them and complain about them. It gave them a way of expressing frustration. And now that the marriage is gone, they've got no one to blame, no one to vent to, no one to express themselves to. And I certainly experienced this when my mum passed away. I often thought, if she did this, if she did that, be okay. And I remember sort of 3 or 4 months after she passed away, catching myself having that conversation with myself, going, if only and I thought, well, she's not even here and you're still blaming her. So some of it can be that we've lost a venting partner or a compassionate companion, someone who can just listen to us when we're struggling. Sometimes we've lost somebody, not because they've passed away, but maybe I had one lady I was working with. She said, I can't work out what's changed. She said, I was doing okay. And then when we started looking at what had changed, 2 of her friends, one had cancer, one was going through divorce. And so she would normally vent to them. She would normally talk to them about what was going on, but she wasn't able to do that because she didn't want to burden them with what was really in her. She'd made an evaluation that her stuff was quite minor compared with what they were going through. So she'd made the decision not to tell them, not to burden them. And another case can be, a workplace. I've had somebody whose manager has left, or their boss has sold the company. And so they've gone from being in this environment where they knew, liked and trusted the people they work with. And then there's a change to the infrastructure, the change to the management. So who they go to is different. So my job as a coach is to help you get clarity of what you want and the confidence to make it happen. And it nearly always comes down to changing the way that you give, receive and invite feedback, because when you've had a change in your support network, you probably are changing who you talk to and the way you talk about it. If you've never really had that support network, maybe you're somebody who is really good at listening to other people, really keen to avoid conflict, wants to keep everybody happy, likes to help people because it makes you feel fulfilled and on purpose, and it makes you feel good because you know that you make a difference and it matters. That you've actually created a pattern of life where you're helping everybody else to do what they want to do, but you're not actually listening to yourself. And so one of the things about a coach is to ask you questions. Now, clean coaching is an extreme form of listening. So if really great listening was a 10, then clean coaching is a 20. And my job as a clean coach is to say to you things like, what would you like to have happen? And then reflect your words back to you exactly so that you can hear yourself think, so that you can make sense of what you mean by what you say and to make sure that you say what you mean. But I'm also making sure that you're not being mean to yourself or other people, i.e. you're not in drama, you're not persecuting yourself, you're not the victim, and you're not there busy rescuing yourself and others, i.e. either letting yourself off the hook when actually it requires a bit of a push to get through some uncomfortable parts of change. So why people don't come to me for sympathy is because who I am as a person before I even became a coach is that I don't like seeing people struggling. Okay, I really don't like seeing people struggling. I hate to see people. So if people give me if they tell me, so a great example with this weekend, my mother-in-law was saying she needed more phosphorus in her diet. Well, that was it. I'm looking up everything I've got and what can I buy that's got phosphorus in it. So I know what somebody wants. I will make it happen. I'm really, really focused like that. If somebody is just talking about what they don't want and what's not working, then as a friend, a mother, a partner, it's really difficult for me to support and resource them. And so I don't do particularly well, and I didn't do very well with my friends and family if they wanted to whinge and moan about something but didn't actually want to change it. So one of the things I have had to learn to do is I understand now the benefit, if you like, and the power of having a good power bitch. Having a good moan about your system situation, self, whatever it might be. But having a good old moan about it can, in itself, express the emotion that's bottled up and it can actually free your mind. And so quite often I've come to understand that people do that moaning about something is often enough for them to release it and then get on with it. And so, but for coaching, if you're sitting in a situation where you're complaining about something over and over again to the same people, and very limited people, or you're running out of people to tell the story to, the way the brain works is the brain is a pattern spotting mechanism. And so for me personally, I have a 3 strikes and you're out. So if I have a really good friend or a family member, I will listen while they moan about themselves or something else once, twice, and then 3 times I'll say, look, it's obviously really upsetting you and it's hurting you and it's not going well, and I have heard you say this is like the 3rd time we've talked about it. What would you like to have happen? And that's when I will ask a coaching question and find out what do they actually want, or find out what's working about talking about it on a repeated basis. And what I've come to understand is that we often get into the pattern of talking about what's not working, because whilst we're talking about it and somebody else is giving us empathy rather than sympathy, they're connecting with us and go, oh yeah, I get that, that's hard, that's tough. In that moment of being heard and understood, we feel connected, we feel less alone, and that feeling actually settles the chemicals in our body. So we go from being stressed, flight, or freeze, to feeling safer. And so what we can do is get in this pattern of complaining and moaning, because in that moment of complaining to somebody, we have somebody's attention. However, if you repeat the story over and over again, the way the brain works is it's tracking patterns. And once it's identified a pattern, it's actually, it pays less attention to it, because it goes, oh, well, this is what happens, then this has happened. So when someone's listening to you and you're repeating a story, it's much harder for your friends, families to actually listen and pay attention, because they have to put more energy into it when it's actually a pattern that's repeating. Secondly, if they are somebody who really loves you and cares about you and they can see you talk about the thing that's really hurting you, they will eventually want things to be different for you. And if not for you, then for them, because listening to you in pain and listening to you suffering can be painful for them to watch. They get frustrated. And this is when we get some conflict going on at home, because what you might need is to vent, and what they might need is to know that you're okay. And so one of the things I talk about with my clients is that they're chatting with the purpose of finding solutions, noticing strengths, tracking progress, and celebrating change. Now, for me as a coach, when I'm listening to people, I'm asking them questions, and if they're not and I'm looking for things to be changing. But I will also ask my clients, thinking about, what was happening for you when we first started talking, what's happening now, what, if anything's changed. And what I've discovered over the years is I can listen to friends and family for a lot longer and more repeated stories if I know it's actually making a difference, it's helping them. If it's not making a difference and it's not helping them, and I'm having to go through quite a lot of discomfort, listening to them being in pain, listening to them stuck, then sometimes it's about me actually speaking up and saying what I need in that relationship. And I might ask a question like, how can I best support you? So generally speaking, what I know happens in my network and my family and friends, people only really come to me and talk to me about what's not working if they want a solution. Because I will listen once without making any comment. I'll listen twice, and I might even go, that sounds awful, that's tough. I might show some empathy for their situation. But what I'll never do is feel sorry for them. I'll never feel that that's their lot. I'll never feel that there's nothing they can do about it, because I know no matter how pants life is, it doesn't matter how awful things are, there is always, absolutely always hope. There is always something that you can do about it. And if the only thing you do is change the way that you give, receive, and invite feedback, you can start to talk to yourself and about yourself and your situation differently. And that will change the way your system reacts. So you'll put less stress on your system. And when you put less stress on your system, you can actually start to make decisions and you can do things differently. So one of the things that happens when we're under stress is it's very difficult to make a decision. So I just want to talk to you is that it's really important that we have people to talk to when things are tough. Okay, so this is not about you should never complain and you should never moan. And as you're complaining and you're moaning, just ask yourself, what is working about this? And if what's working is you've got connection and you've got someone that's listening, just try this on for size. If what you want is connection and to be heard and understood, try talking to people about what's working. Try talking to people about what you love about them, because it's much easier for friends and family to listen to or talk about what you want rather than what you don't want, because family and friends can listen when you're not in pain and you're not struggling, and when they actually know specifically what you want to do. So those who've watched this video before will know that we have 3 questions. The questions are, what would you like to have happen? How do you need to be? And what kind of resource and support do you need? So if you know that you're stuck and you are talking around and around the circle and you're not getting the sympathy or maybe even the empathy that you need from the people you're talking to, it might be that they literally do not have the skills or the resources. Maybe they've got enough overwhelm with themselves. They just can't take on their responsibility of what's going on for you, and they don't know how to listen and ask you questions that train your attention on what you want and what would work for you. And if that's the case and you do want some solutions, please don't forget the next 7-day Make It Happen Motivator is starting next Monday, where you get to work for an hour a day for 7 days. I go in live at 7 o'clock, but you can come in anytime you like and watch the video on replay. And you can complete the worksheets publicly so that I can ask questions and help you with them, or you can do it very privately and introvertly in your own space. It's entirely up to you. But by the end of that week, you will learn how to listen to yourself without judgment, without criticism, and you will learn to find out what it is you want to have happen and what motivates you personally to take action. But more importantly, you'll also know what demotivates you. What is it you hear and see that triggers you not to take action? because that's the kind of listening that I do best, when people actually are talking to me because they want a solution. Now, as a friend or family member, I'd much rather you said, Cheryl, can you do this, can you do this? And then I can just go yes or no. I've got time, I've got money, I've got resources, I've got skills, and I can help. But sometimes we do, through the process of change itself, need to be able to express how hard we're finding it. But please don't get in the habit of always repeating the pattern of talking about how hard it is, because actually what you really want is connection. You want to be heard and understood, because it's much more fun in life if we're being heard and understood for what we want and what works for us and things that we're celebrating. And croaky voice there, whoever's live with me today, please feel free to say hello. Good morning, gorgeous Andrew. We've just been speaking today. I'm just going to pop the I'm trying to put the chat box in the Eventbrite links there. If anybody has gone in twice now, anybody who wants to join us, we've got the 7-day makeup motivator starting next week. It's 197 for a week of having access to me for 7 days a week, not quite 24/7, but I'm in there quite a lot during the day in the Facebook group. So please do not struggle, and stop looking for sympathy. Start talking with the purpose of finding solutions. Have a fantastic day, and I'll speak to you again on Friday. Take care. Bye. Wobbly but bored.